Welcome to our first deep dive into the vast universe of Mass Effect. Tonight, we're exploring one of science fiction's most iconic locations, a place that serves as the beating heart of galactic civilization itself. The Citadel stands as a monument to both the heights of achievement and the depths of deception. A structure so massive and so ancient that its very existence challenges everything we think we know about the galaxy. Before we embark on this journey through the arms and rings of this colossal station, if you enjoy these explorations of science fiction's greatest mysteries, hitting that subscribe button really helps the channel grow. Now, settle in as we unravel the complete story of the Citadel, from its true origins to its role in shaping the destiny of every sentient species in the Milky Way. The first time you see the Citadel in Mass Effect, it takes your breath away. Commander Shepard's ship, the Normandy, approaches through the Serpent Nebula, and suddenly there it is, a structure so impossibly large that your mind struggles to comprehend the scale. 5 massive arms extend from a central ring, each one stretching over 43 kilometers into space. The arms are open, revealing cities built along their inner surfaces, lights twinkling like stars against the darkness of space. This is no mere space station. This is a world unto itself, home to over 13 million souls from dozens of different species, all living and working together in what appears to be a testament to cooperation and unity. But appearances, as we'll discover, can be devastatingly deceiving. The Citadel measures 44.7 kilometers in total length when its arms are fully extended, with a diameter spanning 12.8 kilometers across. To put that in perspective, each of the 5 ward arms is roughly the size of Manhattan, while the central Presidium ring stretches 7.2 kilometers in diameter. The entire structure weighs 7.11 billion metric tons, a mass so staggering that it defies easy comprehension. And yet, despite this incredible bulk, the Citadel rotates smoothly, generating artificial gravity through centrifugal force. The wards experience a comfortable 1.02 standard Earth gravities, while the Presidium ring, closer to the center of rotation, maintains a lighter 0.3 gravities that gives movement there an almost dreamlike quality. The station completes one full rotation every 3.5 minutes, a speed that seems impossible for something so massive, yet the engineering is so perfect that residents never feel the motion. The exterior hull, constructed from materials that no contemporary species can identify or replicate, measures 13 meters thick and is virtually indestructible. Weapons tests conducted by various military forces over the centuries have proven that even sustained bombardment from the most advanced dreadnoughts would take days to breach the Citadel's armor. And that's assuming the station remained open and vulnerable, rather than closing into its defensive configuration, because the Citadel can close. In times of emergency, those 5 massive arms can fold inward, converging to form a seamless cylinder that transforms the station from an open flower into an impenetrable fortress. When closed, the Citadel becomes a 25-kilometer-long tube of armor so dense and so resilient that it could withstand almost any assault. This defensive capability has rarely been needed throughout recorded history, but its very existence speaks to the paranoia, or perhaps the foresight, of whoever designed this incredible structure. And that question, the question of who built the Citadel, is where our story truly begins. When the Asari first discovered the Citadel in 580 BCE, they believed they had stumbled upon the greatest archaeological find in galactic history. Here was a massive, fully functional space station, apparently abandoned, but perfectly maintained, sitting at the junction of multiple mass relays, like a gift waiting to be claimed. The Asari, having only recently discovered how to use the mass relay network themselves, recognized the strategic importance of the Citadel's location immediately. It sat at the heart of what would become known as Citadel space, with mass relays connecting it to virtually every corner of the explored galaxy. But the Citadel wasn't empty. When the first Asari explorers boarded the station, they found it already inhabited by a species unlike any they had encountered before. The Keepers, as they would come to be called, were insectoid creatures that moved through the station with single-minded purpose, maintaining systems, repairing damage, and generally ensuring that everything functioned perfectly. The Keepers didn't communicate, didn't acknowledge the Asari presence beyond moving around them when necessary, and showed no interest in anything except their endless maintenance tasks. The Asari tried to communicate with the Keepers, tried to understand where they came from and who had created them. But every attempt failed. The Keepers simply continued their work, as they had apparently been doing for thousands of years, as they would continue to do for thousands more. And when the Asari tried to capture a Keeper for study, to understand its biology and perhaps learn something about the Citadel's origins, the creature triggered some kind of self-destruct mechanism. Within minutes, the Keeper had dissolved itself from the inside out, reducing its body to a puddle of proteins and minerals that revealed nothing about its nature or purpose. After several such incidents, the Asari decided that the Keepers were best left alone. They established laws protecting the creatures, making it illegal to interfere with Keeper activity under penalty of imprisonment. The Keepers, for their part, seemed to welcome the Asari presence. They immediately began adapting the station to accommodate organic life, adjusting environmental controls, activating systems that had been dormant, behaving almost like servants. Surprised by their master's return and scrambling to make everything ready, the Asari weren't alone on the Citadel for long. Within decades, the Solarians discovered the station as well, following the mass relay network to the same central hub. The two species, recognizing the value of cooperation, formed the first Citadel Council, an executive committee that would govern the station and eventually much of the galaxy. The Volus arrived soon after, becoming the first species granted an embassy on the Presidium, the first of what would be called the associate races. Over the following centuries, more species discovered or were guided to the Citadel. The Elcor, the Hanar, the Turians after the Krogan rebellions, each adding their own culture and perspective to the growing galactic community. The Citadel became more than just a space station. It became the political capital of the galaxy, the cultural heart of civilization, the financial center where fortunes were made and lost, the place where history was written and the future decided. And through it all, the keepers maintained the station, silent and enigmatic, while everyone assumed the Citadel was a gift from the Protheans. The Prothean theory made sense. The Protheans were the last great galactic civilization before the current cycle, an empire that had spanned the stars before mysteriously vanishing roughly 50,000 years ago. Prothean ruins dotted the galaxy, and it was Prothean technology that had allowed most species to achieve faster-than-light travel in the first place. The Asari had found Prothean ruins on their homeworld. Humans had discovered Prothean artifacts on Mars. The mass relay network itself was attributed to Prothean engineering. So why not the Citadel as well? The station's age seemed to match the Prothean timeline. Its technology, while far more advanced than anything the current species could create, seemed consistent with other Prothean artifacts. And the Keepers, well, the Protheans were known to have been masters of genetic engineering. Perhaps they had created the Keepers as biological machines, programmed to maintain the Citadel forever. It was a neat explanation, one that satisfied most questions without raising uncomfortable new ones. But there were always hints that something wasn't quite right. The Citadel's core remained inaccessible, hidden somewhere deep within the structure where even the Keepers rarely ventured. The master control unit that regulated life support, navigation, and all the station's vital systems was never found, despite centuries of searching. The material the Citadel was constructed from couldn't be identified, couldn't be replicated, couldn't even be properly analyzed. It was as if the station existed slightly outside the normal rules of physics, built using principles that contemporary science couldn't quite grasp. And then there were the Keepers themselves. Research conducted by scientists like Chorbin and Jalid, working on the edges of legality, suggested that the Keepers were far older than the Prothean civilization. Their genetic structure, what little could be analyzed before they self-destructed, showed signs of modification so extensive and so ancient that it predated any known civilization. The Keepers weren't just maintaining the Citadel. They were part of it, integrated into its systems at such a fundamental level that separating Keeper from station was impossible. The truth, when it finally emerged, was far more sinister than anyone had imagined. The Citadel was not built by the Protheans. The Protheans had simply been the last species to use it before the Asari arrived, just as countless species before them had used it, just as the Asari and their allies were using it now. The Citadel, along with the entire mass relay network, was constructed by the Reapers, an ancient race of sentient machines that existed for a single purpose: the systematic extermination of all advanced organic life in the galaxy. Every 50,000 years, give or take, the Reapers emerged from dark space to harvest the galaxy's civilizations. They would sweep through the Milky Way like a plague, destroying every spacefaring species, every culture that had achieved a certain level of technological advancement. And then, their harvest complete, they would retreat back into dark space, waiting for the next cycle to begin. for new civilizations to rise and reach the point where they were ready to be harvested once again. The mass relay network was designed to guide developing civilizations along predictable paths, ensuring they would discover faster-than-light travel in specific ways, develop their technology along certain lines. The relays were a highway system that looked like freedom, but was actually a cage, channeling galactic development in directions the Reapers desired. And at the heart of this network sat the Citadel, the ultimate trap. The Citadel wasn't just a space station. It was a dormant mass relay, the largest ever constructed. A gateway that connected directly to dark space where the Reapers waited. When a civilization had sufficiently developed, when it had spread across the galaxy and established itself as the dominant power, the Reapers would activate the Citadel relay. In an instant, the full force of the Reaper fleet would materialize in the heart of galactic civilization, at the seat of government, surrounded by the leadership of every major species. The first strike would be devastating. With the Citadel captured and the Council eliminated, the Reapers could access every database, every military plan, every secret the galactic civilization possessed. They would know the location of every colony, every fleet, every defensive installation. The harvest would be swift and thorough, with no time for the organic species to mount an effective resistance. This was the true purpose of the Citadel. Not a gift, but a trap. Not a symbol of unity, but an instrument of genocide. And the Keepers were the key to making it all work. The Keepers had once been an organic species, perhaps the first species the Reapers ever encountered, or perhaps a race specifically created for this purpose. The Reapers had transformed them, rewriting their genetics, programming them at a fundamental level to serve the Citadel, and by extension, to serve the Reaper's harvest cycle. The Keepers maintained the station, kept it attractive and functional so that each new civilization would want to make it their capital. They ensured that the trap remained set, generation after generation, cycle after cycle. And when the time came, when the Reaper Vanguard sent the signal, the Keepers would activate the Citadel relay, opening the gateway to dark space and beginning the harvest. This system had worked flawlessly for millions of years, through countless cycles, through the rise and fall of civilizations whose names were lost to time. The Reapers had perfected their harvest, refined it to a science, eliminated every variable that might allow organic life to escape its fate. The Citadel was the cornerstone of this system, and it had never failed. Until the Protheans. The Prothean Empire, at its height, was the most powerful civilization the galaxy had ever seen. They had conquered or absorbed dozens of species, built an empire that spanned the stars, achieved technological marvels that the current cycle could barely imagine. They were arrogant, believing themselves to be the pinnacle of evolution, the rightful rulers of the galaxy. And when the Reapers came for them, they were utterly unprepared. The harvest of the Protheans followed the usual pattern. The Reaper Vanguard, a massive vessel called Sovereign, sent the signal to the Citadel. The Keepers received the signal and began the activation sequence for the Citadel relay. In moments, the full Reaper fleet would arrive, and the Prothean Empire would fall just like all the empires before it. But something went wrong. The relay didn't activate. The keepers, for the first time in millions of years, failed to respond to the signal. Sovereign waited, sent the signal again, but nothing happened. The Citadel remained closed, the relay dormant, and the Reapers were forced to travel to the Milky Way the slow way, at normal faster-than-light speeds, a journey that would take centuries. This delay, this unexpected failure in a system that had never failed before, gave the Protheans time. Not enough time to save their civilization. The Reapers were too powerful and too numerous for that. But enough time to fight back, to resist, to leave a legacy that might help the next cycle avoid the same fate. Deep in the Prothean research facility on Ilos, a team of scientists had been studying the Citadel, trying to understand its true nature. When the Reaper invasion began, these scientists entered cryogenic stasis, hoping to survive the harvest and emerge when it was safe. Their facility's VI's, Vigil, was programmed to wake them when the Reapers had departed. But the harvest lasted far longer than anyone had anticipated. The Protheans, spread across the galaxy and fighting desperately for survival, held out for centuries. The stasis pods on Ilos, designed for a much shorter duration, began to fail. Vigil, faced with an impossible choice, shut down non-essential pods to conserve power, sacrificing hundreds of Protheans to save a handful. In the end, only 12 scientists survived. When these last Protheans finally awoke, they found themselves in a galaxy of ruins. Their empire was gone, their species extinct except for themselves, and the Reapers had retreated back to dark space to wait for the next cycle. But these scientists, even in their grief and despair, refused to give up. They had spent their careers studying the Citadel, and they understood what it truly was. They knew about the relay, about the keepers, about the signal that would trigger the next harvest. Using the conduit, a miniature mass relay they had built that connected Ilos directly to the Citadel, these last Protheans traveled to the station. They accessed the Citadel's core systems, something no one had been able to do before or since, and they altered the signal the Keepers received. They couldn't destroy the relay, couldn't disable the Citadel's true function, but they could change the Keepers' programming so that they would ignore the Reaper signal when it came. It was a desperate gambit, a final act of defiance from a dying species. The conduit was a one-way relay, and the Prothean scientists knew they would be trapped on the Citadel with no way home. Vigil theorized that they eventually starved to death, unable to find food or water on a station that had been designed to be maintained by keepers, not inhabited by organic life without support systems. But their sacrifice worked. When Sovereign tried to signal the Citadel 50,000 years later, when the current cycle had developed sufficiently to warrant harvesting, the Keepers didn't respond. The trap that had worked flawlessly for millions of years had been sabotaged, and the Reapers were forced to find another way to begin their harvest. This brings us to the Citadel as it exists in the Mass Effect trilogy. A place of incredible beauty and terrible secrets, where millions of people live and work, completely unaware that they're standing on the galaxy's greatest weapon. Let's explore the Citadel as its residents experience it, starting with the Presidium. The Presidium is the gleaming heart of the Citadel, a 10-kilometer-wide ring that serves as the connection point for the 5 ward arms. This is where power resides, where decisions that affect trillions of lives are made, where the elite of galactic society live and work. The Presidium is designed to impress, to inspire, to remind everyone who visits that they are standing at the center of civilization itself. The interior of the Presidium is landscaped to resemble a lush parkland, complete with a large freshwater lake, verdant fields of grass, carefully maintained trees, and even artificial clouds drifting across a holographic sky. The environmental controls create gentle breezes that rustle the leaves and ripple the water, while the lighting system simulates natural sunlight with such precision that it's easy to forget you're inside a space station. The Presidium goes through a day-night cycle, with 6 hours of darkness during which the sky is dimmed and stars appear overhead, giving residents a sense of normalcy and connection to planetary life. The buildings along the Presidium's curving walls are architectural marvels, designed to blend seamlessly with the parkland surroundings. Many structures are open to the interior, with no exterior walls at all, their interiors visible to anyone walking past. This openness is possible because of the heavy Citadel security services presence and the ubiquitous monitoring devices that cover every centimeter of the Presidium. Crime is virtually non-existent here, not because the residents are particularly virtuous, but because getting away with anything is essentially impossible. The embassies line the Presidium, each one representing a species that has earned a place in the galactic community. The Asari Embassy, the Turian Embassy, the Solarian Embassy. These are the seats of power for the Council races, the species that actually govern the Citadel, and by extension, much of the galaxy. Then there are the embassies of the associate races, the Volus, the Elcor, the Hanar, and eventually the humans, after they proved their worth during the Skillian Blitz and the Battle of the Citadel. Each embassy reflects the culture and values of the species it represents. The Asari Embassy is elegant and serene, filled with art, and designed to facilitate contemplation and discussion. The Turian Embassy is more austere, efficient, and military in its organization, reflecting the Turian culture's emphasis on discipline and hierarchy. The Human Embassy, when it's finally established, is a statement of ambition, a declaration that humanity has arrived on the galactic stage and intends to be taken seriously. The Presidium is also home to the galaxy's elite, individuals who have achieved such wealth or influence that they can afford to live at the center of power. Private residences dot the ring, each one a testament to its owner's success. These homes often have no walls facing the interior, their luxury on full display. A subtle form of status competition among the Citadel's upper class. Restaurants, bars, and meeting areas are scattered throughout the Presidium, all of them upscale, all of them expensive, all of them places where deals are made and alliances forged over drinks and carefully prepared meals. The Embassy Lounge is particularly popular, a place where diplomats and power brokers gather to conduct the informal business that often matters more than official negotiations. The Presidium's financial district is where the galaxy's economy is managed. Here, in offices overlooking the lake, traders and bankers move credits between star systems, fund colonial ventures, and make the investments that drive galactic development. The Volus, with their natural aptitude for commerce, dominate this sector, though every species has a presence. Barla Vaughn, a Volus banker who is secretly an agent of the Shadow Broker, maintains an office here, his legitimate business providing perfect cover for his information-gathering activities. And then there's the Consort's Chambers, home to Shaira, an Asari who has elevated the art of companionship to something approaching a religious experience. The consort doesn't simply provide physical pleasure, though that's certainly part of her service. She provides understanding, insight, a connection that her clients desperately need but can't find anywhere else. Powerful individuals from across the galaxy seek her counsel, and she guards their secrets with absolute discretion. Her influence, though unofficial and unacknowledged, rivals that of many ambassadors. The Presidium spaceports are located on the ring as well, positioned close to the center of rotation where the reduced spin gravity makes docking and cargo handling easier. Hundreds of ships pass through the Citadel every day, from massive freighters bringing supplies to feed the station's millions of residents, to sleek diplomatic vessels carrying ambassadors and their entourages, to military ships on patrol or shore leave. Every species with an embassy is granted a private dock, a small but significant privilege that reinforces their status in the galactic hierarchy. At the very center of the Presidium rises the Citadel Tower, a structure over 1 kilometer tall that appears to thrust forward parallel to the ward arms. The tower is at the center of the station's spin axis, experiencing little centrifugal force, so gravity is maintained using mass effect fields oriented at a 90-degree angle to the ring and wards. This is where the Citadel Council meets, where the most important decisions in the galaxy are made. The council chambers are not open to the public. Access is strictly controlled, granted only to officials, ambassadors, and those with special clearance. The chambers themselves are beautifully furnished, with trees and fountains creating an atmosphere of natural serenity, while staircases lead up to the central platform where the 3 counselors, one Asari, one Turian, one Solarian, convene to hear petitions and render judgments. The council's power is both absolute and limited. They have no official authority over the independent governments of the various species, but their decisions carry enormous weight throughout the galaxy. no single council race is strong enough to defy the other two, and all have a vested interest in compromise and cooperation. This balance of power has kept the peace for over 1,000 years, preventing the kind of devastating wars that marked earlier eras of galactic history. But the Council's authority is also constrained by practical realities. They can make laws that apply to the Citadel and to space that falls under their direct jurisdiction, but enforcing those laws across the vast distances of the galaxy is another matter entirely. This is where the Spectres come in. The Spectres, officially known as Special Tactics and Reconnaissance, are the Council's elite agents, individuals granted extraordinary authority to preserve galactic stability by any means necessary. Spectres operate above the law, answerable only to the Council itself, empowered to do whatever they deem necessary to complete their missions. They can kill without trial, ignore local laws, commandeer resources, all in service of the greater good as defined by the Council. Becoming a Spectre is one of the highest honors in the galaxy, a recognition that an individual possesses not just exceptional skills, but also the judgment and integrity to wield such power responsibly. Spectres are chosen from the best operatives of every species, though for most of the current cycle, the Spectres have been dominated by Turians and Asari, with a handful of Solarians. Humanity's exclusion from the Spectres was a source of frustration for the Systems Alliance, a symbol of their second-class status in the galactic community. That changed when Commander Shepard became the first human Spectre, a moment that represented humanity's arrival as a true power in the galaxy. But Shepard's induction came at a terrible cost. In the wake of the betrayal of Serene Arterius, a Turian Spectre who had gone rogue and allied himself with the Reapers. Serene's betrayal exposed the fundamental flaw in the Spectre system. By placing individuals above the law, by giving them the authority to act without oversight, the Council had created the potential for catastrophic abuse of power. Serene had used his Spectre status to cover his tracks, to access restricted information, to move freely through Citadel space while planning the very destruction of the civilization he was supposed to protect. And when evidence of his betrayal emerged, the Council was slow to act, reluctant to believe that one of their most trusted agents could have turned against them. This brings us to the other major institution that maintains order on the Citadel, Citadel Security Services, universally known as CSEC. CSEC is a volunteer police service answering directly to the Citadel Council, responsible for maintaining public order on the station and throughout the Citadel cluster. With 200,000 constables, CSEC is one of the largest law enforcement organizations in the galaxy, and its jurisdiction extends far beyond the Citadel itself to include pirate suppression, customs enforcement, and search and rescue operations throughout the surrounding systems. CSEC is divided into 6 divisions, each with its own specialized role. The Enforcement Division consists of uniformed officers who patrol the Citadel and respond to emergencies, the visible face of law and order that residents see every day. The Investigation Division is made up of detectives who solve crimes, gather evidence, and build cases against perpetrators. The Customs Division screens the thousands of passengers and cargo containers that pass through the Citadel's ports daily, looking for contraband, illegal weapons, and other prohibited items. The Network Division deals with cybercrimes, everything from identity theft to hacking to illegal artificial intelligence research. The Special Response Division handles hostage situations, bomb threats, and heavily armed criminals, essentially serving as CSEC's SWAT team. And in the unlikely event that attackers board the Citadel, Special Response would be the front line of defense, equipped with military-grade weapons and armor. The Patrol Division is CSEC's naval arm, with ships stationed throughout the Citadel cluster. Unlike the other divisions, patrol officers are rarely seen on the Citadel itself, spending most of their time in space, responding to distress calls, intercepting pirates, and generally maintaining order in the space lanes around the station. Joining CSEC is prestigious, requiring sponsorship from a Citadel counselor or the ambassador of an associate council race. Most applicants have years of distinguished service in the military or police forces of their home nations, though exceptional talent can sometimes overcome a lack of experience. The organization prides itself on its professionalism and its commitment to due process, which sometimes puts it at odds with the Spectres and their more flexible approach to justice. Executor Venari Palin, the Turian who leads CSEC during the events of the first Mass Effect, is particularly vocal in his criticism of the Spectre system. He believes that placing individuals above the law is dangerous, that even the best intentions can be corrupted by unchecked power. Saren's betrayal proved Palin right, though it brought him no satisfaction. The attack on the Citadel that Saren facilitated killed thousands of CSEC officers and civilians, a tragedy that could have been prevented if the Council had listened to warnings about Saren's activities earlier. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we discuss the Battle of the Citadel and its aftermath, we need to explore the wards, where the vast majority of the station's population lives and works. If the Presidium is the Citadel's gleaming heart, the wards are its beating pulse, the place where real life happens, where millions of people from dozens of species live side by side, in a density and diversity that has no parallel anywhere else in the galaxy. Each of the 5 ward arms is essentially a city unto itself, with residential districts, commercial zones, industrial areas, and everything else needed to support a population that would be substantial even on a planet. The wards are open-topped, skyscrapers rising from the superstructure toward the center of the station. These towers are sealed against vacuum because the breathable atmosphere is only maintained to a height of about 7 meters. Above that, the atmosphere is contained by centrifugal force and a membrane of dense, colorless sulfur hexafluoride gas, held in place by carefully managed mass effect fields. It's an elegant solution to the problem of maintaining an atmosphere in an open structure, though it does mean that anyone wanting to access the upper levels of the towers needs to use pressurized elevators and corridors. The view from the wards is spectacular, in a way that never gets old, no matter how long you live there. In the background, stars and the blue-tinted Serpent Nebula move across the sky as the station rotates. In the foreground, The lights of buildings and vehicles on the opposing ward arms shine perpetually, creating a cityscape that curves up and over your head, defying every instinct about how cities should look. It's disorienting at first, seeing buildings and streets above you, knowing that people are walking on what appears to be the ceiling. But residents quickly adapt to the perspective. Unlike the Presidium with its artificial day-night cycle, the wards never truly sleep. Commercial activity continues around the clock, with businesses operating on schedules that suit their owners and customers rather than conforming to any standard day. Residents work and rest according to personal need, creating a rhythm of life that's uniquely suited to a space station where the sun never rises and never sets. The wards are where the galaxy's cultures collide and blend. Many species have established cultural enclaves, neighborhoods where their language is spoken, their food is served, their traditions are maintained. You can walk through a Turian district, all military precision and efficient architecture, then turn a corner and find yourself in an Asari neighborhood, all flowing curves and artistic expression. A few blocks later, you might stumble into a Hanar quarter, where the jellyfish-like beings float through specially designed spaces, their bioluminescence creating an otherworldly glow. Population density in the wards is extreme, comparable to Earth cities like Hong Kong and Singapore. Living space is at a premium, and most residents make do with apartments that would be considered cramped by planetary standards. But the wards offer something that no planet can match: opportunity. This is where fortunes are made, where a clever entrepreneur can build an empire, where someone with skills and ambition can rise from nothing to become someone important. The cost of living in the wards is high, but so are the potential rewards. Jobs are plentiful, from legitimate businesses to gray market operations to outright criminal enterprises. The wards have their share of crime, more than the Presidium, certainly. But CSEC maintains a strong presence, and most residents feel reasonably safe. The key is knowing which areas to avoid, which alleys not to walk down, which establishments are fronts for criminal organizations. The lower wards, in particular, have a reputation for being rough. This is where CSEC's main offices and custody suites are located, a strategic placement that puts law enforcement right in the heart of the area that needs it most. The lower wards are home to Chora's Den, a nightclub that serves as a front for various illegal activities, and to Flux, a more legitimate establishment that's popular with both residents and visitors. The wards are constantly being modified and expanded. Residents add new structures. Businesses renovate their spaces. Entire districts are redeveloped as needs change. The only requirement is that modifications stay within certain specifications that won't compromise the station's operation. The keepers enforce these limits in their own way, occasionally descending on an area and moving or changing architecture without explanation. Residents have learned to live with these inexplicable intrusions, though they're always unsettling when they happen. Beneath the inhabited superstructures of the wards, between the cities and the impenetrable outer hull, lie the foundations. These are dangerous areas filled with life support systems, power plants, and the infrastructure that keeps the Citadel functioning. Officially, Only the keepers are allowed in the foundations, but in reality, they've become the slums of the Citadel, home to criminals, minorities, transients, and stateless exiles. Some people end up in the foundations because they have nowhere else to go. They came to the Citadel seeking opportunity but found only disappointment, and they lack the resources to leave. Others choose to live there, preferring the freedom of the foundations to the surveillance and regulations of the inhabited wards. The foundations have their own economy, their own social structures, their own rules that have nothing to do with CSEC or the Council. The recycling systems in the foundations manufacture artificial organic pastes that can be eaten for sustenance. These pastes are free and nutritious, but nearly tasteless and of unpleasant texture. Poorer Citadel residents quickly become adept at dressing up this bland fare with sauces and spices, while imported foodstuffs remain a luxury of the wealthy. It's a reminder that even in the heart of galactic civilization, poverty and inequality persist. The foundations are also where the Citadel's secrets are kept, where systems that no one fully understands continue to function, maintained by keepers who never explain what they're doing or why. It's in the foundations that the Citadel's true nature is most apparent, where the station's alien architecture and incomprehensible technology are most visible. Walking through the foundations, you can't escape the feeling that you're inside something vast and ancient, something that was built for purposes you can't begin to understand. And you would be right to feel that way, because the Citadel was never meant to be a home for organic life. It was meant to be a trap, and every system, every feature, every carefully designed element serves that ultimate purpose. The Serpent Nebula that surrounds the Citadel is itself part of the trap. The blue-tinted reflection nebula is actually light from the Citadel, scattered and reflected back at the station. Initially, scientists assumed the nebula was made of microscopic construction debris, remnants of the Citadel's creation. But unlike other nebulae, the Serpent doesn't dissipate over time, which means it must be replenished constantly. The current theory is that non-recyclable waste collected by the keepers is somehow rendered down to the atomic or molecular level and ejected into the clouds. It's an elegant waste disposal system, but it also serves a defensive purpose. The thick nebula presents a navigation hazard, with electrical discharges that can damage ships and dense knots of dust that can overwhelm kinetic barriers. Attempting to reach the Citadel through open space navigation is inadvisable. The only safe approach is through the mass relays that orbit the station, which means that anyone coming to the Citadel must use the relay network, must follow the paths the Reapers designed. The Citadel's defenses are formidable, even without considering its true nature as a Reaper construct. The station is protected by the Citadel Fleet, a massive task force consisting mostly of Turian vessels, but including significant contributions from other Council races. The fleet is led by the Destiny Ascension, an Asari dreadnought that serves as the Council's flagship and is one of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. The Citadel fleet constantly patrols the space around the station, and reinforcements from across Citadel space are only minutes away, thanks to the mass relay network. Any attacker would face not just the fleet, but also the station's own defenses, including point defense turrets and the ability to close its arms into an impenetrable shell. In theory, the Citadel is one of the safest places in the galaxy, virtually impossible to attack successfully. In practice, as Seren's assault proved, the Citadel's greatest vulnerability is internal. If someone can gain access to the station's systems, if they can control the Keepers or override the Citadel's security protocols, then all those external defenses become irrelevant. And that's exactly what Seren attempted to do. Seren Arterius was one of the Council's most effective specters, a Turian with a distinguished record of service and a reputation for getting results, no matter how difficult the mission. He was also a Turian who had never fully accepted humanity's rapid rise in the galactic community, who saw humans as dangerous upstarts, who needed to be kept in check. This prejudice, combined with his exposure to Reaper technology and the insidious process of indoctrination, transformed Seren from a loyal agent of the Council into a willing servant of the Reapers. Seren's plan was elegant in its simplicity. He would use Sovereign, the Reaper vanguard that had been waiting for 50,000 years to begin the harvest, to attack the Citadel directly. Sovereign would dock with the station and use its connection to override the Citadel's systems, forcing the Keepers to activate the relay to dark space. The full Reaper fleet would arrive, the harvest would begin, and organic civilization would fall, just as it had in every previous cycle. The plan almost worked. Seren had covered his tracks well, using his Spectre authority to access restricted areas and classified information without raising suspicion. By the time Commander Shepard uncovered evidence of his betrayal, Seren had already assembled a massive Geth fleet and was preparing for his assault on the Citadel. The Battle of the Citadel was one of the most devastating conflicts in modern galactic history. Sovereign and the Geth fleet emerged from the relay and immediately engaged the Citadel fleet, while Geth ground forces boarded the station and began fighting their way toward the Citadel tower. The Council, trapped in the tower as the battle raged around them, faced the very real possibility of death of capture. Commander Shepard, arriving through the conduit just as the last Protheans had done 50,000 years before, fought through the Geth forces and confronted Seren in the Council chambers. The battle that followed was as much psychological as physical, with Shepard trying to break through Seren's indoctrination and make him see that he was being used by the Reapers. In the end, Seren's own will proved strong enough to overcome the indoctrination for just a moment, long enough for him to take his own life, rather than continue serving the Reapers. But Sovereign wasn't finished. The Reaper took direct control of Seren's corpse, reanimating it through technological means and attacking Shepard one final time. Only after this abomination was destroyed did Sovereign itself fall, brought down by the combined fire of the Citadel fleet and the human Fifth Fleet, which had arrived just in time to turn the tide of the battle. The Battle of the Citadel changed everything. The Reapers were no longer a myth or a theory. They were real. They were coming, and the galaxy had barely survived an encounter with just one of them. The Council, humbled by how close they had come to destruction, was forced to acknowledge that Commander Shepard had been right all along. Humanity was granted a seat on the Council, a recognition of both their sacrifice during the battle and their growing importance in the galactic community. But the battle also exposed the Citadel's vulnerabilities. Thousands had died in the fighting, and large sections of the station had been damaged. The Keepers immediately began repairs, working with their usual silent efficiency. But the psychological damage couldn't be repaired so easily. The Citadel had always been seen as safe, as inviolable, and that illusion had been shattered. People who had lived their entire lives on the station suddenly felt vulnerable, aware that their home could become a battlefield again. The repairs took months, with the Keepers working alongside organic construction crews to restore the damaged sections. The Keepers' work was fascinating to observe. They seemed to know exactly what needed to be done, moving with purpose and precision, often touching up or correcting the work done by organic crews. Nobody knew where the Keepers got the materials for their repairs, but somehow they always had what they needed. In the aftermath of the battle, scientists like Chorbin, who had been studying the Keepers before the attack, published their findings. Chorbin had discovered that the Keepers were engineered, designed to react to a signal that occurred every 50,000 years or so. He theorized that they were created millions of years ago by the same beings who made Sovereign, a conclusion that was both terrifying and enlightening. The Keepers weren't Prothean creations. They were Reaper creations. And they had been maintaining the Citadel trap for longer than any organic civilization had existed. This revelation changed how people viewed the Keepers. They were no longer mysterious but benign caretakers. They were instruments of the Reapers, programmed to facilitate genocide. And yet, thanks to the Prothean scientists who had altered their programming, the Keepers now served the organic species living on the Citadel, rather than the Reapers. They had been freed from their original purpose, though they would never know it, would never understand what they had been or what they had become. The Citadel continued to function as the heart of galactic civilization in the years following the battle. The Council, now including a human representative, worked to prepare the galaxy for the Reaper invasion they knew was coming. But bureaucracy and politics moved slowly, and many species were reluctant to divert resources to prepare for a threat that seemed distant and abstract. When the Reapers finally arrived in force in 2186, they came not through the Citadel, but through the mass relays, attacking multiple systems simultaneously in a coordinated assault that overwhelmed the galaxy's defenses. The Citadel, ironically, was one of the last places to fall, its defenses and strategic importance making it a target the Reapers couldn't ignore, but also couldn't easily take. The Reapers' solution was characteristically brutal and efficient. They seized control of the Citadel, closed its arms, and moved the entire station to Earth's orbit,
placing it at the heart of their harvesting operations. The Citadel's population, those who couldn't evacuate before the arms closed, found themselves trapped on a station that had become a Reaper stronghold. Many were killed outright. Others were processed, their
bodies used as raw material for Reaper construction. The Citadel, built to be a trap for organic life, had finally fulfilled its original purpose, though not in the way the Reapers had originally intended. The Citadel's role in the final battle against the Reapers was crucial. The Crucible, a superweapon designed by previous cycles and built by the combined efforts of the current cycle's species, required the Citadel to function. The station wasn't just a trap. It was also the catalyst, the key component that would allow the Crucible to transmit its energy across the entire galaxy through the mass relay network. Commander Shepard, in a final, desperate assault, boarded the Citadel and fought through Reaper forces to reach the Citadel's control systems. There, Shepard encountered the Catalyst, an artificial intelligence that controlled the Reapers and had been orchestrating the harvest cycles for millions of years. The Catalyst, taking the form of the child Shepard had failed to save at the beginning of the war, explained the Reaper's purpose: to prevent organic life from creating synthetic life that would inevitably destroy its creators. The Catalyst offered Shepard 3 choices, each one using the Crucible and the Citadel in different ways. Shepard could destroy the Reapers, ending the threat, but also destroying all synthetic life in the galaxy. Shepard could take control of the Reapers, becoming a new intelligence that would direct them toward constructive purposes. Or Shepard could merge organic and synthetic life, creating a new form of existence that would transcend the conflict between the two. Whatever choice Shepard made, the Citadel was central to its implementation. The station, with its arms opened to their maximum extent, amplified the Crucible's energy and transmitted it through the mass relay network to every corner of the galaxy. The Citadel itself was heavily damaged in the process, possibly destroyed, depending on which choice Shepard made. But its final act ensured the survival of organic civilization. In the aftermath, if the Citadel survived, it would need to be rebuilt, its systems restored, its population returned. The Keepers, if they survived, would continue their work, maintaining the station as they always had, unaware of the role they had played in the galaxy's salvation. The Citadel would remain the heart of galactic civilization, but it would be a different place, forever marked by the knowledge of what it truly was and what it had been used for. The story of the Citadel is ultimately a story about deception and redemption. It's about a trap so perfect that it fooled countless civilizations across millions of years, and about the few individuals who saw through the deception and fought to break the cycle. It's about the Prothean scientists who sacrificed themselves to give the next cycle a chance, and about Commander Shepard who seized that chance and used it to end the Reaper's reign of terror. But it's also a story about the millions of ordinary people who lived on the Citadel, who made it their home, who built lives and families and communities on a station they believed was a gift from an ancient civilization. These people, from dozens of different species with different cultures and values and beliefs came together on the Citadel and created something remarkable. They created a society that, despite its flaws and inequalities, represented the best of what organic life could achieve. The Citadel's architecture, its parks and lakes and artificial sky, its embassies and markets and residential districts, all of it was designed by the Reapers to be attractive, to draw organic life in and make them want to stay. But the life that flourished on the Citadel, the culture and community that developed there, that was created by the organic species themselves. They took the Reaper's trap and made it into something beautiful, something worth fighting for, something worth dying for. And in the end, that's what saved the galaxy. Not the Crucible, not the Catalyst, not even Commander Shepard's heroism, though all of those were necessary. What saved the galaxy was the fact that organic life refused to give up, refused to accept that the Reaper's cycle was inevitable, refused to let the Citadel be nothing more than a trap. They made it into a home, and they fought to defend that home with everything they had. The Citadel stands as a testament to both the heights and depths of what's possible in the universe. It's a reminder that even the most perfect trap can be overcome, that even the most ancient and powerful enemy can be defeated, that even a structure built for genocide can become a symbol of hope and unity. As we look at the Citadel, whether in its open configuration with its arms spread wide to welcome the galaxy, or in its closed defensive posture protecting those within, we see more than just a space station. We see the story of every civilization that ever lived there, every person who ever called it home, every dream that was dreamed, and every hope that was held within its walls. The Citadel is 44.7 kilometers of metal and technology, 7.11 billion metric tons of matter, arranged in a specific configuration. But it's also more than that. It's an idea, a promise, a possibility. It's the idea that different species can live together in peace. It's the promise that cooperation is stronger than conflict. It's the possibility that even in a galaxy full of dangers, there can be places of safety and beauty. The Keepers continue their work, as they have for millions of years, maintaining the station with silent dedication. They don't know that they were created by the Reapers, don't know that they were meant to facilitate genocide, don't know that they were freed from that purpose by the last Protheans. They simply do their work, keeping the Citadel functional, keeping it beautiful, keeping it alive. And perhaps that's fitting. Perhaps the Keepers, in their innocence and their dedication, represent the best possible outcome for the Citadel. They were created for evil purposes, but they've been transformed into something good. They maintain a station that was meant to be a trap, but has become a home. They serve organic life, not because they were programmed to, but because that programming was changed by those who refused to accept the Reaper's vision of the galaxy. The Citadel's story isn't over. As long as there are species exploring the stars, as long as there are people seeking a better life, as long as there are dreamers and builders and those who believe in the possibility of a better future, the Citadel will endure. It will continue to be the heart of galactic civilization, the place where cultures meet and mingle, where history is made and the future is shaped. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest victory over the Reapers. They built the Citadel to destroy organic life, but organic life took their creation and made it into something that celebrates life instead. They built a trap, but we made it into a home. They built a weapon, but we made it into a symbol of peace. The Citadel stands, and as long as it stands, there is hope. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the Citadel and its secrets, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations of science fiction's greatest mysteries. The Mass Effect universe is full of fascinating locations and stories, and we'll be covering more of them in future videos. Until next time, this is Cryo Bay Logs, reminding you that even in the darkest reaches of space, there are places of light and wonder. Sleep well and dream of the stars.